We all know a good workout can really boost your mood, right? Like that whole healthy body, healthy mind thing. But what if I told you it goes deeper than that?
Deeper. How so?
Well, get this. What if the healthy mind could actually lead to a healthier body?
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's what we're diving into today, how cultivating a positive mindset can actually translate into better workout results.
It's not just about, slapping on a happy face and hoping for the best either. There's actually some really fascinating research behind this.
Exactly, and that's what I love about this deep dive. It's all about arming you with practical takeaways, things you can actually use. So to get us started, can you unpack this idea that a sound mind can actually boost physical health?
Well, you know that old saying in corpore sano, mens sana, a healthy mind in a healthy body.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a concept that's been around forever, emphasizing how important physical health is for our mental well-being.
Right.
But our source today flips the script a bit, suggesting this connection is a two-way street.
So it's not just that exercise is good for our mental state, but that a positive mental state can actually improve our physical performance.
You got it.
That's pretty wild. How does that even work?
Well, just think about it. When you feel motivated, you're more likely to push yourself during a workout, right?
Okay.
And when you're feeling tenacious, you're less likely to just give up when things get tough.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. These mental states, motivation, tenacity, resilience, they all play a huge role in how we approach and respond to physical challenges. Our source actually emphasizes removing those mental obstacles as the key to a successful fitness journey.
It's like that Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Exactly.
Okay, so that all makes sense, but how do we actually do that? How do we remove those obstacles?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. One of the biggest takeaways from what we've been looking at is the role of personal trainers. And not just any trainer, but one who really gets this whole mind-body connection thing.
Because let's face it, not all trainers are created equal.
Oh, for sure. Some might be amazing at pushing you physically, but they might not really get the mental side of training.
Absolutely.
According to our source, the best trainers really get that true fitness means training both the body and the mind. So they're incorporating things like personalized training templates to free up their clients' mental energy,
Oh, interesting.
goal-setting workshops to cultivate a real sense of purpose, and even mindfulness sessions to help enhance focus and reduce stress.
I'm super intrigued by this whole personalized training templates thing. Can you tell me a bit more about that? How does that even play into a positive mindset?
Sure. Well, think about it this way. When you're constantly second-guessing your workout routine or you just feel totally overwhelmed by the sheer number of exercises and reps,
Hmm.
it creates this mental clutter. And
Yeah.
that mental clutter can really drain your energy and kill your motivation. But when you've got a personalized plan, one that's actually tailored to your specific goals and needs, it just eliminates all that guesswork. And that lets you focus on what you're doing in the moment instead of all that other stuff.
So it's all about creating a sense of clarity and control, which can then do wonders for your confidence and motivation.
You got it. It's about working smarter, not just harder. And that's a key principle that applies to both our physical training and our mindset.
Love it. So we've covered the importance of a positive mindset and how crucial having a supportive trainer can be. But are there any tools or techniques that we can use on our own to help us cultivate that winning mentality?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful tools, and honestly, one that people often totally overlook, is the power of self-talk. You know, like how athletes are always talking to themselves during a competition.
Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, that inner voice has a huge impact on actual performance.
Oh, for sure. I think I remember reading about a study in our source material that looked at athletes and self-talk.
Yeah.
And it found that the athletes who consistently practiced positive self-talk actually performed way better.
Yep, exactly.
What's going on there? What's happening in the brain when we talk to ourselves like that?
Well, it's not just about silencing your inner critic, although that's definitely a part of it.
Okay.
It's about replacing those negative thoughts with supportive, compassionate ones.
Yeah.
When we do that, we actually start to rewire our brains to focus on our strengths, to embrace those challenges, and just really believe in our ability to succeed.
So it's kind of like having your own personal cheerleader in your corner 24/7, constantly reminding you that you've got this, cheering you on to keep going even when things get hard.
Exactly. And the more we practice that positive self-talk, the more automatic it becomes. It's like anything else, really.
Right. Practice makes perfect, or at least makes it more natural.
Exactly. So over time, It becomes our default mode, shaping our beliefs, our actions, and ultimately our results.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's really amazing how much power our thoughts have over our physical realities.
It really is.
And speaking of powerful mental tools, let's talk about visualization for a sec. I've heard a lot about it over the years, but I'm curious, how does it actually work, like in the context of fitness?
Yeah, so visualization is this really cool technique that a lot of really successful athletes use, even Olympians like Michael Phelps.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's about creating a really clear, detailed mental picture in your mind of yourself achieving your goal, whether that's like finally nailing that really hard yoga pose, or shaving minutes off your personal best run time, or even just feeling more confident and energized during your workout.
So it's about more than just daydreaming about crossing the finish line.
Oh yeah, way more.
What's the science behind it? Why does it work? And most importantly, how can our listeners start using it?
It's about engaging all your senses to really create this immersive experience in your mind.
Hmm.
Like you're not just seeing yourself achieve the goal, but you're feeling that exhilaration, hearing the cheers of the crowd, maybe even smelling the fresh air, or, even the sweat on your brow. It's all part of it.
Hmm. Wow. So you're basically creating this mental blueprint for success, right? And
Yeah.
in doing that, you're training your mind and body to know how to respond when you actually encounter that scenario in real life.
That's a great way to put it. It really is like rehearsing for a big performance, but instead of practicing lines or dance moves or whatever,
Hmm.
you're rehearsing for success.
I love that. And just like with anything else, the more you practice, the more ingrained those neural pathways become. It becomes second nature.
Exactly.
Our source even mentioned that visualization can be really helpful in managing stress and boosting motivation,
Yeah.
which, as we've talked about, are both super important when it comes to fitness and reaching our goals.
100%. When we visualize ourselves overcoming those obstacles and achieving our goals, it actually builds mental resilience. We're training our minds to stay focused and positive, even when things get tough.
It's like that saying, see it, believe it, achieve it.
Yeah.
And speaking of overcoming challenges, our source also talked about how important a positive mindset is when it comes to injury recovery. I think there was that really interesting study from Stanford.
Oh, yeah, the one about athletes and recovery times, right?
Yes.
That one. Yeah, that was a fascinating one. They found that the athletes who had a more positive outlook on their recovery actually recovered faster and more effectively.
They gave the example of basketball players who visualized a speedy recovery. And what do you know? They were able to get back on the court sooner. It really makes you think maybe we underestimate just how big of a role our minds play in the healing process.
Right. We put so much emphasis on the physical, but the mental side of it is huge too. It's not just about physical healing, though.
Yeah.
It's about mental resilience too. Think about it. When we get injured, it's so easy to fall into that negative spiral. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We dwell on the pain and limitations, and we start to freak out about the uncertainty of it all.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
But if we can shift our focus to visualizing our recovery, like picturing ourselves getting back to our favorite activities, maybe even stronger than before, we start tapping into the power of that mind-body connection. And that can actually support the healing process.
Man, that's so true. A while back, I sprained my ankle, and it was pretty bad. I remember being so focused on the pain and how long it was taking to heal. Honestly, I can totally see how a more positive outlook would have made a huge difference.
It's not about, pretending that the injury isn't real or that it doesn't hurt. It's about choosing where we focus our energy. So instead of dwelling on the negative all the time, we can choose to focus on the positive. Like the progress we're making, how much support we have around us, and our goal of getting back to doing the things that we love.
Right. It's that whole thing shifting your perspective from I'm sidelined to I'm using this time to heal and come back even stronger.
Yes, exactly. And it's not just injuries either. Cultivating a more positive outlook can help us stay consistent with our workouts, even when life gets crazy. And we all know how hard that can be.
Oh, tell me about it. It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and just let our healthy habits fall by the wayside. In fact, speaking of staying healthy, our source also highlighted the importance of mindfulness when it comes to preventing injuries in the first place.
Right, which is something we don't always think about. We often think of injuries as this thing that just happens out of the blue, but the reality is that they're often the result of all these little, seemingly insignificant choices,
Yeah.
the things we do in the days and weeks leading up to it.
So, like, not paying attention to our form when we're tired, or pushing through pain because we feel like we can't miss a workout.
Exactly. Mindfulness, in terms of fitness, is really about being fully present in our bodies.
Okay.
So it means tuning into our bodies, really noticing any aches or pains, and adjusting our movements as we need to.
It's like instead of just zoning out and going through the motions, we have to be present in our bodies and pay attention to what they're telling us.
Yes, it's about shifting from autopilot to active awareness.
Hmm.
Paying attention to things like our form, our breathing, and even our surroundings can significantly reduce our risk of getting injured.
And it makes those workouts safer, more enjoyable, and let's be honest, way more sustainable over the long run.
100%. And you know what? When we exercise with that awareness, we're not just training our bodies. We're also training our minds to be more present, more focused, more in tune with our physical selves.
Wow.
And that's a skill that will benefit us in every area of our lives.
It's like building this mind-body connection that makes our workouts better. A&D helps us in other areas of life too,
Yeah,
dealing with stress, making good choices,
Yeah.
just all of it.
exactly. And that actually brings us to another really important point from the research we've been looking at.
Okay, what's that?
The importance of thinking long-term with fitness. Like, what's your vision? And how are you going to stay consistent?
It's not about those quick fixes or fad diets or real change, the kind that lasts. That takes time and effort. And a big part of that, like we've been saying, is having the right mindset.
It's about shifting your focus from those short-term results to making changes that you can actually sustain. And it's about recognizing and celebrating those small victories along the way
Yeah.
and accepting that setbacks are just part of the journey.
And approaching the whole thing with self-compassion, right?
Right.
Knowing that we've got this, even if it takes time.
Yes, exactly.
So it all comes back to having a positive mindset.
It does. Remembering why did we even start this whole thing in the first place? Holding on to that, especially when we're feeling less motivated or when life gets in the way. That's key.
It's funny. We talk about motivation like it's this thing that just happens to us. We either have it or we don't. But what if we actually have more control over it than we think?
Right. And a lot of times motivation actually follows action.
What do you mean?
So when we take that first step, even if it seems small, putting on our workout clothes or doing 5 minutes of stretching or whatever, it creates this momentum. And when we start to see those little wins, it motivates us to keep going.
Kind of like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. We just need to figure out what that first step is going to be. Something small, something we can actually do that gets us moving in the right direction. And having that clear vision of our goals and a plan to get there,
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference. It gives us something to work towards, something to remind ourselves of when we're feeling lost or discouraged.
That's so important. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into how much our mindset impacts our workouts, I have a question for you and for our listeners. We've talked about visualization and how even Olympians use it. So is there a goal that you could start visualizing that would make your workouts even better? Maybe it's finally nailing that pose in yoga that you've been working on, or beating your best run time, or maybe it's just feeling more confident and having more energy when you're working out. Whatever it is, what's that goal?
Yeah, and while you're thinking about your goal, remember what we talked about. Engage all your senses as you picture yourself achieving it. Really feel the excitement, the feeling of accomplishment, how proud you are of yourself. Because the more real you can make it in your mind, the more likely you are to make it a reality.
Love it. It's like they say, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. And it's so true. And hey, it might not happen overnight, but if we put in the effort and believe in ourselves, we can achieve some pretty amazing things. Thanks for joining us on this journey of mind over muscle. We'll see you next time.